Tibet after she was attacked by a pair of coyotes.
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey...
He ripped your face off!
We actually have a trainer in the water with one of our whales.
If I show weakness, if I retreat, I may be hurt, I may be killed.
Baby Azaria Chamberlain was taken by a dingo back in 1980.
Woo! Welcome everybody to spooky Halloween episode. My vampire voice is very much just the Slavic man voice. That's right, this is new character I am trying. His name is not Vlad, his name is Krostok. My favorite foods are capsicum, tomato with a little bit of salt on it. Hey, African drum circle, how about a little bit of Halloween music, buddy? Oh, fuck, no. So, it's just the one song you can play. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Man. It is the only true crime podcast on the entire fucking internet where all the killers are real animals, whether there's biting, scratchings, maulings, or even goddamn clawings. We are here to talk about it. As always, I'm your host, James, a.k.a. Jimothy, a.k.a. Jambalaya, a.k.a. the most smelly with the most belly, a.k.a. Just the letter A. Nice to hear you, or nice for you to hear me, I guess. Recording this the day before Halloween, which coincidentally, or I guess not coincidentally, it's not a coincidence, it's my birthday today. Hooray! Yay for me. And what better thing for me to be spending my 32nd birthday on than recording an episode for you guys. That's, yeah, you know what? This relationship's starting to feel a little one-sided because I've recorded 141 or 142 at this point episodes for you, and none of you have recorded a single episode for me. It's pretty fucked up if you think about it. If you thought this was a relationship, gang, you are not nearly doing your bit, okay? In fact, we need to get on evil playing. I'm gonna sit back for a hot minute and wait till you record 142 episodes, and then we can talk. Why am I so angry today? It's my birthday. I should be happy. I'm just kidding. I am happy. I'm rather glad to be here with you to talk about a very spooky category for the episode. What was the character's name again? Kustuk, the Capsicum Man. I don't know. I think that character will never come back, if I'm being completely honest. That's right, today we are tackling a rather scary subject. A subject that we have once or twice in the past tackled a little bit, but we're going a little bit deeper, a little bit more intensely into it today. As I'm sure you've gathered from the title of the episode today, we are talking once again about human cannibalism. But whereas before we talked about cannibalism to survive or serial killer cannibals, today we're talking about a very uncomfortable aspect of cannibalism, which is fetishes. Fetishes, or fetishi, is it like octopus? Is it octopi? It's like, I'm pretty sure the rule is cactus, cacti, octopus, octopi. Fetish, fetishi. Yeah, we're talking about cannibalism when it comes to fetishes. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Also, before we jump into that, hey, real quick, thank you. The last episode we released about the shark attacks in Egypt, I don't know what was in the water that week, but that was the most successful episode I've ever published. Knocked everything else out of the water. This is going to be a real letdown, honestly, I think unless you guys, carry your weight. But yeah, I don't know. I guess you guys enjoyed it. I don't know. I hope you did, because more people listen to it than every other episode that I've published in the last few years. So thank you for that, I guess. Had a lovely comment on the Spotify. By the way, you can comment on Spotify podcast episodes, and you should. And little inside joke for us here at Man Eaters, please refer to the episodes as yummy. If you review the episode as if it is a culinary experience, it doesn't really do anything for me, but it does confuse the shit out of people who don't know what the show is. And I like that. I'm an agent of chaos and I'm here to cause it. Maybe this episode where we're talking about cannibals, lay off the yumminess maybe, but in future ones you can do it. But we did have a comment about the last episode, very positive. But one thing you said was very entertaining for me, which was you're not only are you an Australian, but you make content like an Australian too. And I just didn't know what to make of that. Like, what does make content like an Australian mean? I think it's just saying cunt a bunch, isn't it? And before you get angry at me, that word has very little power here. It's fine. Call my best friend a cunt. Sup, cunt? That's how I actually said hello to my friend the other night. The family of 4 sitting behind us in the next booth were not thrilled by that greeting, but it still happened, okay? We had a bit of fun with that comment over on the Instagram. Some suggestions on what making content like an Australian sounds like. Spreading Vegemite all over the microphone. Very good comment there. What was another one? Another one was just recording it upside down. Because I always forget, Australia, we're all upside down here. And then another one was just saying, hey, after every sentence. Which we do that, hey. We do, hey. I do that all the time. Hey, mate. Yeah, anyway. So, thank you for those views over there on that episode. And, yeah, if this episode has anything less than the exact same number that we got last week, I will, I can't threaten to kill myself anymore. The lawyers talked to me about that. Let's just say, if you don't listen, there might not be another episode, okay? Okay, yeah, all right. No, I'm not actually going to do it, drum circle, obviously. Jesus Christ. I'm not, for Jesus, for the record, I'm not going to kill myself. But you'll kill yourself if you don't sit back and enjoy this episode on human cannibalism that may have been the worst introduction ever. Okay, let's do it. Let me ask you a question there, dear listener. When you hear the word man-eater, what do you think of? Do you think of a pop hit from the 80s? She's a man-eater. I don't actually know how the song goes. And I don't know if it's from the 80s. Do you picture that? Do you picture tigers and lions and bears? Oh my. Do you maybe even picture a really shitty mid-sized podcast hosted by some dumb loser virgin from Australia? Maybe you think of all 3 of those things when you think of man-eater, and that is fine because they're all very, very, very valid. But here's the thing. Sometimes man-eaters aren't those things. Sometimes they're not just animals with claws and fangs. And sometimes they don't crawl out of the ocean or the jungle, although I can't think of any man-eaters that crawl out of the ocean. Shark with legs, that would be fucking scary, damn. Sometimes man-eaters can look just like you and me. Just like me. Pasty white guy. Sometimes, man-eaters are pasty white guys. And that is what is going to make today's episode so spooky and unsettling. Because instead of talking about animals that see us as prey today, we're diving into the darkest corner of the human mind. And we're talking about the rare, but very real phenomenon of human cannibalism. Now, human beings have always, I nearly said human cannibals. Human beings have always had a complicated relationship with the idea of eating other people. History is littered with stories of survival cannibalism, and we've talked about a few of them on the show before. Things like shipwrecks and sieges and starving explorers turning to their dead comrades because the alternative was simply just to fade away. And then there's something like ritual cannibalism, something I think I would like to talk about in a future episode with a very special guest. Ancient cultures who believed that consuming the flesh of the dead was a way of honoring them or even absorbing their spirit or powers. And then there's the part of cannibalism that typically in polite society we don't like to talk about. And that's because this isn't about survival or ceremony. It's because this very uncomfortable facet of cannibalism comes from obsession, desire, and fantasy. And that is where our 2 main stories today are coming from. Today, we're going to meet 2 very interesting men, seemingly ordinary, polite-looking, and somewhat intelligent men who, for one reason or another, crossed the line. These were men that didn't just think about cannibalism, but actually carried it out. One of them, Issei Sagawa, murdered and ate a young woman in Paris and somehow turned this crime into a twisted form of celebrity. And the other man, Armin Meiwes, who found a willing victim online, someone who actually wanted to be killed and eaten, and carried out one of the most disturbing consensual crimes ever recorded on camera. And yes, my friends, it is on camera. Now, Armin Meiwes, we have actually covered in this show before. A year or two ago, when we first touched on the possibility of talking about human cannibalization, we talked about several serial killers. Jeffrey Dahmer was one of them, and Armin Meiwes was another. Also, somewhat embarrassing for me, I was mispronouncing his name the entire time incorrectly. It is Armin Meiwes. That's his name. He's from Germany. So let's get our German accents ready. Are we ready to... Let's do a practice of our German accent drum circle. Oh yeah, very good, yeah. I'm full of chocolate. Oh, hi. That's my German accent. Very offensive to the Germans, but you know what? You asked for it. Okay, so... we're talking about Issei Sagawa and Armin Meiwes. Now, I do know what you're thinking here. You're thinking, hey, man, come on, man, don't listen. This is a podcast called Man Eaters, you fucker. I want to listen to stuff about lions and sharks and crocodiles. I want to listen to the animal heavy hitters. But guess what, buddy? It's my freaking birthday, so we're going to do what we want. So buckle up. And fuckle up, because today isn't just an episode about cannibalism, it's an episode about obsession, power, and how fragile the line between civilized and savage really can be. Because you know what? If animals can eat us out of instinct, what does it mean when we eat each other by choice? So let's get into it. Issei Sagawa was born in 1949 in Kobe, Japan. Kobe! Shouldn't do that anymore. He died in a helicopter crash. On paper, Issei Sagawa's life should have been comfortable. His father was a wealthy businessman, and his family had lots of money and lots of status, and little Issei was always described as quite intelligent. But standing at just under 5 feet tall, with a frail frame and recurring health issues, Sagawa felt different from the start. He felt like an outsider. He felt like he was a weakling. He felt small. And as he grew older, he developed fantasies that would set him apart in a way that no one could have predicted. And I really do mean that. How would you possibly predict that this little Asian boy would turn into a slightly larger Asian cannibal? Now, from an early age, Sagawa admitted that he was obsessed with cannibalism. Not just the killing and not just sex. Specifically, he was obsessed with the idea of eating human flesh. Now, he claimed that this all began in childhood when he looked at the legs of a classmate and wondered what they might taste like. Now, I'm sure we can all put ourselves back in, high school, primary school, whenever we first were, when we had a little bit of a sexual awakening. I remember where I was when I had my sexual awakening. I remember the first time I saw a classmate's legs. I'll tell you what, my first thought wasn't like, boy, oh boy, I want to munch on them. My first thought was, golly gee, what I wouldn't give to give her a cuddle and maybe a little peck on the cheek, because I used to be quite innocent. I do not know what happened. But no, Issei looked at these legs and he thought, I want to eat those. It does sound somewhat cartoonishly evil. It's almost like something out of a horror movie. But for Sagawa, it was real. It was deadly serious. He later described this as an urge, a hunger, and something gnawing at him. Ironically, it was gnawing at him before he was gnawing at her. And it wasn't just cannibalization in general. It was actually very specific. He fantasized about Western women, tall, blonde, European, exotic for him, and everything that he was not. This little Asian boy was absolutely not a tall, blonde, European woman. I don't think that's controversial to say, guys. Don't cancel me. His obsession wasn't just in hunger, physical hunger. It was wrapped up in feelings of inadequacy, fetishization, and power. By the late 1970s, Sagawa had traveled to Paris to study literature at the Sorbonne. Now, my theory is that this is just like a cover for him to go. He was always going to go to Europe. to kill and eat someone, and I think the studying literature was just a cover. He lived in a small apartment in Paris, and he spent his days immersed in French poetry. I nearly said pastry. That would be delicious. But not for him, because he likes eating girls. All the while, however, Issei and his fantasies about cannibalism were festering. He even claimed that he hired prostitutes and invited them back to his apartment, but each time when he tried to pull the trigger on his fantasy, he froze up. And so that's a bad image to think of. Excuse me, monsieur, I am a sex worker. Please do not bite my nipples. You have to pay extra for that. You have to pay more euros to do that. That's bad French accent. And a bad joke. All around bad. Now, yeah, he didn't pull the trigger on his fantasy until 1981. And that's when he met a young lady named Renee Harteveld, a 25-year-old Dutch student. Renee was a vibrant, cultured, and open-minded person. Everything that Sagawa idolized. They became close acquaintances, sharing conversations about literature and culture. And to her, well, he was just this slightly shy, slightly odd classmate. To him, she was the perfect embodiment of his lifelong obsession. On the night of June 11th, 1981, he invited Renee to his apartment under the pretense of recording poetry. She sat at his desk, reading passages out loud. As she read, Sagawa stood behind her and raised a .22 caliber rifle. He later said that he was overwhelmed by her beauty, by the thought that she could leave and he'd never have this chance again. So, Issei pulled the trigger and shot her in the neck. She died instantly. Now, Sagawa claimed that he fainted immediately from the shock. Oh, what a wuss. But when he woke up, well, that's when the real crime began. And we're going to go into a little bit of red flag territory here, so be warned. It gets a little messed up here, but I'm sure you were expecting that. It is an episode about cannibals. Issei undressed Renee's body. He raped her corpse and began cutting into her flesh with a knife. He later described tasting her as, quote, soft and melting, comparing it to raw tuna. And that sucks because I love raw tuna. That's going to stick with me. God damn it. He cooked some of her flesh, he ate some pieces raw, and he stored others in his refrigerator. Over the next 2 days, he consumed her entire body bit by bit. Now here's the thing. Cannibalism is one of those rare universal taboos. Every culture on the planet treats it as an ultimate line you don't cross. Now I should say almost every culture treats it that way. There are some cultures that don't, but as far as cultural taboos go, this is kind of like the big one. No one really likes a cannibal. And yet here he was, this Japanese man living in one of the world's great cultural hubs, indulging in it like it was, the world's indulging in it like it was some long suppressed craving. Anthropologists would later compare his case to historical examples of pathological cannibalism, where the act isn't about survival or ritual, but about domination, fetish, or compulsion. In other words, Issei wasn't hungry, he was obsessed. Eventually, Sagawa decided to dispose of what was left of Renee's body. He stuffed her remains into 2 suitcases, called a taxi, and took them to the Bois-le-Bourgeon Park. I think that's spelled incorrectly. Pronounced incorrectly. The spelling is fine, guys. I can spell, I just can't read. His plan was to dump the cases into the lake, but they were too heavy for the frail man. They were way too heavy, and as he struggled to push them down the bank, wouldn't you know it, he was spotted by passers-by. And unfortunately, guys, there is just really no good way to explain away dumping blood-stained suitcases into a lake. It's very hard to convince someone that this is fine. Maybe he should have done what they did in that Simpsons movie. Remember? You can't pollute the lake. Okay, I'll take my yard trimming somewhere else. Chief, I think he was dumping a body. I thought that too, Lou, but then he said yard trimmings. You gotta learn to listen. Spot on Chief Wiggum impression right there. Anyway, the police were called. They opened the suitcases. They saw flesh and blood and bone, and they arrested the man on the spot. And you know what? You would think that would be it, right? Slam dunk. Murderer caught literally red-handed dumping a body in a lake. This is where the story gets interesting, or more interesting, and also gets really fucking infuriating, okay? Because in France, Sagawa admitted to everything. He didn't hide a single thing. In fact, he relished in the details. He seemed to get perverse pleasure out of telling people about his fetish. But instead of being sentenced, he was declared legally insane and committed to a psychiatric hospital. For a while, it did kind of seem like justice. I mean, it is hard to prove that this guy wasn't insane. When you do this, I think that is the definition of insanity. But in 1984, only 3 years later, French authorities deported him back to Japan. And here's the kicker. In Japan, because the French records were sealed, the charges couldn't be pursued. So legally speaking, he was untouchable for this crime. And so, only 15 months after murdering this woman, and eating her body, I would add, Sagawa walked away a free man. And instead of just living in shame, like if you had this magical, cosmic stroke of luck that let you go free after doing something like this, if it was me, I would live in shame. I would find a shack somewhere in Hokkaido or something and just live there as a hermit. And that's how I'd spend the rest of my days. He didn't do that. No, he leaned into this notoriety. He wrote memoirs about the murder. He painted it, dudes. Can you imagine the fucking mental illness that has to be there to paint your crime? Insane. And he gave endless interviews. My God, this guy fucking loved yapping. He was fluent in Japanese. I'm going to give myself a clap there. That was great. Japanese? Because he's from Japan. Anyway, he became this kind of macabre celebrity. At one point, he appeared on a Japanese cooking show where he critiqued meat dishes on air. Can you imagine turning on the TV and seeing a convicted goddamn cannibal giving his professional opinion on steak? Can you imagine being one of the chefs on the show and just cooking a ribeye perfectly, and this guy's like, yes, very good. Should be more chewy, like Renee was. Terrible. He was actually given a nickname, the Kobe Cannibal, and his face became recognizable. There were documentaries. Tabloids lapped this shit up. It was like society couldn't look away. Sagawa wasn't treated like a pariah. He was treated like a curiosity in Japan. Anthropologists and criminologists were absolutely mortified and pointing out how the media had turned a brutal killer into an oddball folk figure. And yet, Sagawa, well, he played along. He once said in an interview that his biggest regret wasn't the murder itself, but the fact that he hadn't been able to eat her entire body before he was caught. That's the level of fucked up disconnect that we're dealing with here. He lived this strange half-life in Japan for decades, frail as always, and all increasingly unwell both mentally and physically, but still occasionally giving interviews. It was almost like he was proud of being the world's most infamous cannibal. And then finally, in 2022, very recently, 2022, he died of pneumonia at the age of 73. Natural causes. Not exactly the ending that you would expect for someone who should have spent his entire life in prison. And yeah, it's a weird little tangent I want to make here, because the cult of celebrity cannibals, no one should be famous for this, but cannibalization is one of those really messed up things. It's one of those taboos that pushes murderers and serial killers into the next realm. Like if you think of the S tier serial killers in the world, right? Your Ted Bundys, your Jeffrey Dahmers. Those guys were cannibals too. They were serial killers first, they were cannibals second, but they tried it out, man. A lot of serial killers did. There's another one I'm forgetting, the Yorkshire, I think it was the Yorkshire Ripper, I can't remember, but cannibalization, it's often a curiosity. These people have killed a person or multiple people and like, you know what, in for a penny, in for a pound, I'll give it a go. But I don't think that someone like Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer would be as infamous as they are if it weren't for the cannibalization aspect. I think it adds an extra layer. I mean, Ted Bundy was also a necrophiliac as well, which is a thing I think is related to this like sexual fetishization of cannibalization. I think that those two things, necrophilia and fetishized cannibalization, are probably connected in more ways than one. But I do think that this and it also just to say, it doesn't elevate, like, it elevates these people from our perspective, right? Not for them. Who cares what they think? The media will play it up so much more. Like, if you have two serial killers and one of them also eats the victims, you're going to do the story on that guy, aren't you? It elevates these people to a new level of infamy. And it's just something I find really interesting, that there's this sort of celebrity cannibal cult that we are really just morbidly curious about. I mean, I'm doing a whole episode on it, so it goes to show that, you know, it does help. It does help elevate your status. So if you are wanting to get up there in the top tier serial killers, number one, don't. I'll call the police on you. Please be a normal person. But two, if you want to, I guess just eat some people. That is not legal advice. Please do not listen to it. Okay, so Sagawa's story forces us to ask some pretty ugly questions. Why are we so fascinated with monsters? And why do killers become celebrities sometimes? Think about this. Like, Jeffrey Dahmer has Netflix specials. He has that TV show with Evan Peters. Hannibal Lecter is a pop culture icon. And how I run a halfway decent podcast, and even I'm talking about this shit. Sagawa got book deals and talk show appearances, and it's like we're both horrified and magnetically drawn to talk about cannibals. As if staring at them helps us understand the darkest parts of ourselves. It also probably makes us feel better about ourselves as well. Because no matter how bad you are, you could be a shitty husband and father, you're at least not a cannibal. It's also, I think, a little bit about privilege. Sagawa wasn't just some anonymous poor man. He was a wealthy, educated, and articulate Japanese person. The media could package him as an eccentric rather than a monster. And he learned to fall into that image, to lean into it. That the frail, soft-spoken Japanese gentleman who also just happened to eat Dutch women. And the scariest part of this, right, is he's proof that sometimes justice isn't about what you do, it's about who you are and where you live and how much society is willing to turn your crime into a spectacle for TV. Now, if Issei Sagawa's case sounds like something straight out of a gothic nightmare horror novel, then you're really not going to like Armin Meiwes, whose story is straight up internet age nightmare fuel. So, picture this. Germany. No, sorry, the good Germany, 2001 Germany, right? We're moved on. My German listeners, you know what? I'm not going to make a single Nazi joke for the rest of the podcast, okay? That's my promise to you. It's long enough. I think I'm probably going to do it. Okay, anyway, it's Germany, 2001. And it's the early days of the web. I think I can't probably do the accent the whole time. This was back when most people were still on dial-up. Remember dial-up? Forums on the internet were the Wild West, and you could stumble into some very, very strange corners of the internet if you knew where to look. And Armin Meiwes, oh, I certainly do know where to look. I'm going to look into the forum about eating man meat. Oh, Armin Meiwes was 42 years old in 2001, and he was living alone in a big, creaky, half-empty house in Rottenburg, Germany, after his mother had died. Oh, rest in peace, mother. Boy, she made the best sauerkraut and Sturkenduken I could possibly have wanted for a little boy. He was lonely, okay, but he wasn't unintelligent. This guy worked in IT. He was organized, he was polite, and he was relatively respectable looking. He's the kind of guy that, you know, could sit next to you on the train and you wouldn't really suspect a thing. But behind closed doors, he had a fantasy. The same fantasy that he'd been harboring since his childhood. Do you want to take a guess what it is? If you guessed cannibalism, you're correct, it was cannibalism. Here's the twister. Armin didn't just want to kill and eat someone. No, he wanted someone who wanted to be eaten. That's an extra level of difficulty here. He dreamed of finding the perfect willing victim. I want somebody who will agree to be consumed piece by piece, or like the ultimate sacrifice. I imagine that's what he sounded like. And thanks to the internet, he found his new hunting ground, a site called Cannibal Cafe. Cannibal Cafe. Yep, that's a real web forum that really did exist. And it was a place where people with cannibalism fetishes met up to swap fantasies, post personal ads, and in some cases, like with Meiwes, actually make plans. It sounds something that you would think was like an urban legend, like a creepypasta from the early ages of the internet gone wrong, but no, this was real. It was very much real, and that's where Meiwes met Bernd Jorgen Brandes. Bernd, a 43-year-old engineer from Berlin. Bernd wasn't just curious, he was committed, and he responded to Meiwes' ad looking for his willing victim, and the two of them struck up a very creepy online relationship. They exchanged messages about the details. Oh, Armin, how will it happen? What would be eaten or burnt? Can I eat everything? Can I even gobble down your little sauerkraut and all? And after months of this grim messaging back and forth, this courtship, Bernd agreed to travel to Meiwes' home to make it a reality. Armin, I'm coming over for a sleepover. Is that okay? What should I wear? Are you wearing winter pajamas or summer pajamas? What kind? Do you have to wear your shoes outside the house and leave them there? What happened next is one of the strangest and most disturbing consensual crimes in modern history. And that's really saying something, because boy howdy, there have been a lot of consensual crimes. But there have been even more, I guess, non-consensual crimes. On March 9th, 2001, Brandes, I'm just going to call him Burnt from now on because it sounds good because he does get cooked up and burnt a little bit. Burnt arrived at Meiwes' home and the two of them had a yummy dinner together. They drank some wine and then, I'm not making this up, they recorded everything on video. Hours and hours and hours of footage. It's never been publicly released, but for good reason, but the police who viewed it have described it in detail. The first act that they did, Bernd asked Meiwes, "Please, sir, cut off my penis." Oh, yeah, I cut it off. Cut off my penis. Yes, his penis. They tried to eat it together. Problem here is, I don't know if you've tried this, penis is a very hard thing to cut and also to cook. It kind of just, I guess, shrivels up. It's not a good thing. But he tried. He pan-fried it with wine, garlic, salt, and pepper. Very little Iron Chef moment. Yeah, very good. But apparently it didn't go well. This organ was too tough, too burnt, and Bernd could barely chew it. So much for a shared meal. It's not my fault, Bernd. If you had a bigger penis, there'd be more to share. Meanwhile, Bernd, as you can imagine, was bleeding rather heavily from the hole in his penis wound. But he was still calm. He was weirdly calm. In fact, at his request, Meiwes ran a warm bath to ease the pain. Imagine the surrealness of this scene. One man soaking in the tub, slowly bleeding out of his penis hole, while the other calmly checks on him and waits. "Would you like another glass of wine while you're in the bath? Very romantic." And hours went by like this. Eventually, Bernd drifted in and out of consciousness, dreaming of being gobbled up by Meiwes. Eventually, Meiwes ended the whole crusade by stabbing him in the throat, and then he hung his body on a meat hook and butchered him. Over the following months, he ate pieces of Bernd stored neatly in his freezer, sometimes cooking them into everyday meals, you know. He even described enjoying them with red wine and Brussels sprouts. Very, very German. Now, if you're thinking, hey man, this crime sounds kind of impossible to prosecute, you know, the guy literally asked for it and filmed himself asking for it, well, you're right. And that's what makes this crime so shocking. For months, no one knew. Meiwes carried on with his life, but he couldn't resist bragging. He'd go back online, talking about his experiences and sharing his details with other fetishists. And that's what finally tipped off the police. When they raided his house, they found 37 pounds of human flesh in the freezer. At the trial, Meiwes shocked everyone by explaining everything in detail, almost proudly. He insisted, no, 999, this isn't a murder. Bernd had asked for it, and he'd even signed a consent form. Very good. One thing you'll know about the Germans, they're very good at paperwork. They like to document their crimes. That's a Holocaust joke. and I guess a Nazi joke, so I'm sorry, Germany. I didn't keep my promise. Very, very sorry. So he signed consent forms. The man had literally walked into his house fully aware of what was going to happen. And by the way, just a little side story about the penis thing. Meiwes wasn't necessarily super into the penis thing either. He just wanted to eat the dude. He wasn't super thrilled about the killing and eating with the guy. So I'm pretty sure that Bernd was the one who was like, just come on, just cut it off. Hurry up, cut it off. And anyway, now at first, the court kind of bought the whole consensual crime thing. In 2004, Meiwes was convicted not of murder, but of manslaughter and disturbing the peace of the dead. His sentence was 8.5 years, and that was it. He could have walked out in less than a decade. But the German public wasn't having it. The public was horrified, and the prosecutors appealed, arguing that this wasn't just some sexy, kinky accident. No, this was a deliberate and premeditated murder. In 2006, a retrial convicted him of murder, and he was sentenced to prison for life. And that's where he is to this day. There's one more surreal twist here. In prison, and this is really ironic here, Meiwes now claims that he has become, what do you think I'm going to say? A Muslim? No, he's become a vegetarian. He claims that he regrets everything, and now he gives interviews warning people about the dangers of cannibalism. Which, I mean, like, that is just like having... it's like having Ted Bundy give you a lecture on why hitchhiking is not a good idea, okay? Very surreal. And this is what makes this case fascinating. Beyond the gore, it's the question of consent. Can a person legally agree to be killed? I don't know. I mean, the courts say no. You can't consent to your own murder. Consent seems to only work if you're still alive afterward. Once you're dead, there's no undo button. Now, philosophers and ethicists love to argue about this, though. Bernd was a grown man, fully informed, actively begging to be eaten. He was not coerced. But does that make the actual killing any less of a crime? Now, the law here draws a really hard line. Murder is murder, okay? No matter how much paperwork you bring to the table. This is also a story about the internet. Now, we're on the internet in a very strange time with AI and all this other shit. This is the pre-digital age. Meiwes, this is about the beginnings of the internet. Now, if this had even happened 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier, in a pre-digital age, Meiwes probably would have lived his entire life never meeting someone like Bernd with his same dark desires. But in the early 2000s, forums like Cannibal Cafe unfortunately made it possible for fringe fantasies to find community. In fact, it made it possible for everyone to find a community, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing. The internet didn't create cannibals, but unfortunately, it has now given them a place to meet. Spelled M-E-A-T, meet, get it? The joke really doesn't work if it's a podcast. You can't see the spelling. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. That's where the true horror story here is. When the taboo desires stop being isolated and become validated, things that should stay fantasy suddenly become very, very real. And this is the thing. Like, cannibalism is a fantasy. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a healthy or good idea. But as long as it just stays in your mind, okay, and it's just something that you whack off to occasionally, I don't know, not so much harm being done. It's when you actually can get into a room with another person and act on it. That's when you get some problems. So, at the end of these two stories, I want to just take a little bit of a detour into the biology of cannibalism, because I think it's worth talking about, because one of the strangest things about both Sagawa and Meiwes is that they didn't immediately drop dead from disease. See, human flesh is biologically similar to pork, which is why it's historically been nicknamed long pig, which is very, very gross. Cannibals from Fiji to Papua New Guinea have described it in that way. So cooking it like pork actually makes sense. But there is quite a big risk here. Prion diseases. Prion diseases are brain-wasting illnesses like Kuru, which has devastated tribes in Papua New Guinea who practice ritual cannibalism into the 20th century. Eating human brain tissue can literally cause neurological collapse. People begin stumbling around, laughing uncontrollably until they die. It's actually horrific. It's like a horror movie. Someone needs to make this movie. Meiwes mostly ate muscle meat, thighs, arms, ribs, a little bit of penis, and some bum. So he dodged that bullet. But it does raise a grim point. Biologically speaking, eating people isn't that different from eating pork chops. It's a cultural taboo. It's a deep universal revulsion that makes it horrifying. And what makes the Meiwes case so disturbing is how rational it all seems in his telling of it. There's no insanity plea here, not like with Sagawa. There's no insanity plea here, no frothing madness. It's just a polite German IT worker who carefully planned out how to butcher and consume another consenting adult, a friend of his. And for months, he lived his fantasy quietly. It was like it was no bigger deal than buying groceries. If Sagawa was the cannibal who got away with murder, then Meiwes was the cannibal who tried to make it a partnership. Two sides of the same monstrous coin. And there you have it. Guys, I gotta be honest with you, I know this show is about animals and man-eaters, but boy, do I find this category fascinating, and I do love that we get a chance to bend the rules here and talk about it at least once a year. Maybe that'll be our thing. Our Halloween special episode will always be dudes eating dudes. All right, let's take a quick break, and we will be back later with our Scratch of the Day. Do me a favor, gang, if you hear any messages, buy stuff from them, because then people will put ads on my show, and then I get money, and then I can spend my money on sexual objects. Okay, let's take a break, go and do a wee. Und wir are back. Ooh, a lot of voices in today's episode. I kind of don't mind that. Let's do the Armin Meiwes voice maybe for our first Scratch of the Day segment. No, we won't do that. But it is time for the Scratch of the Day, so let's quickly play that interstitial. Go! Gang, there has been a spate of bear attacks in Japan. Oh. Thank you, Armin. No, there has been a spate of bear attacks in Japan. In fact, when I was looking for stories to tell, it was all Japan, Japan, Japan. Bear this, bear that. The Japanese army has been asked to cull bears after a spike in attacks on humans this week. Let's give it a read. A Japanese governor says he will ask the military to help cull bears to protect locals amid a wave of attacks. Government statistics state that at least 9 people have been killed by bears in Japan since April this year, an annual record. Dozens of others have been injured as reported cases across the country flow in. In the past week, Japanese media has reported a number of bear attacks, including people exercising in urban areas of Akita Prefecture, a northern mountainous area. Another bear attacked 4 people before being found in a nearby house. None of the victims were seriously injured. There has been some 8,000 bear sightings in Akita this year, a roughly 6-fold increase from 2024. Akita Governor Kenta Suzuki took to social media on Sunday to discuss his plan, which he said would include requesting a military cull as early as Tuesday local time. Exhaustion on the ground is reaching its limit, Mr. Suzuki said in his Instagram post. Akita officials have begun distributing bear repellent spray along school routes to ensure children's safety, he added. A defense ministry spokesperson said she was unaware of any planned visit. Rising bear numbers and depopulation in rural areas are increasingly bringing people into contact with bears. Many encounters have occurred in towns and villages where the animal foraged for food, sometimes entering homes and, on at least 2 occasions, supermarkets. Man, I hate going to Coles or Woolies. The supermarket sucks, but it would be so much worse if there was a bear there, although it would be much more fun to look at. Japan's aging population also means it has too few qualified hunters to track down the bears, which appear less fearful of humans than in the past. This week, Japan's new Environment Minister Hirotaka Ishihara vowed to get tough on bears, calling the attacks a serious problem. We are committed to... I'm not doing the Japanese voice, stop asking. We are committed to further strengthening various measures, including securing and training government hunters and managing the bear population, he said. Local media has also reported advice on how people can protect themselves if they encounter a bear. And from this point of the story, it just tells you how to avoid a bear, which we have talked about ad nauseum on this show. There are estimated 12,000 brown bears on Japanese northern island of Hokkaido. Brown bears can weigh as much as 400 kilograms. The spate of attacks has prompted Japanese filmmakers to postpone the release of a horror movie with the same name. The film Brown Bear features an animal, quote, attacking and eating humans and was set to hit cinemas in November. However, producers have delayed its release, saying they take seriously the fact that there have been a series of real-life attacks in Japan. This is the first I'm hearing about this movie, guys. I want to watch it, and I'm going to watch it subbed, not dubbed. If you watch shit dubbed, not subbed, I have no respect for you. If there is a hissing sound in the audio, I apologize there. My cord just pulled out. And that's not a euphemism for my willy. No, it is. It is a euphemism. Okay. Let's move on. Another story from my backyard, almost. Only a couple thousand kilometers away. 100. Not 1,000. That's very far away. 14-year-old boy mauled by saltwater crocodile while fishing in waist-deep water sustains torso and leg injuries. The attack took place at Mile Beach in Queensland. I've been there. It's beautiful. On October 25th, 5 days ago. A 14-year-old boy is recovering in the hospital after being attacked by a crocodile in Australia. On Saturday, October 25th, the teen was mauled by the animal at around 3:50 p.m. at Mile Beach in Queensland, according to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the ABC, Sky News, and the UK newspaper The Guardian. The latter reported that the boy had been fishing in thigh-high water before the attack, citing a Department of Environment, Tourism and Science and Innovation spokesperson. A Queensland Ambulance Service spokesperson said that the teen had sustained injuries to his torso and leg, per the ABC. Following the incident, the boy was taken to the nearby PK's Jungle Village accommodation, where nurses and locals carried out first aid, manager Harry Hartlett told the outlet. People came out of the rainforest to help, he said. The Cape community really came together. The teen was then airlifted to Cairns Hospital in a stable condition, a Cairns and Hinterland Hospital and Health Service spokesperson told Sky News Australia. The boy was fishing in waist-deep water with two other people when the incident happened. In an email to People magazine, PK's Jungle Village accommodation confirmed that the onlookers and locals who witnessed the incident carried the boy from the beach to their property where he was given first aid and care by staff. Quote, he was in our care until any paramedics could arrive, the spokesperson said. His 14-year-old friend was also taken care of that was in the water with him at the time of the incident. All the staff did an amazing job looking in him after him, they continued. PK's is the heart of Cape Tribulation and one of the first built in Cape Tribulation. Normally, we are entertaining locals, tourists and families, adventure travelers and caravans and campers. On this occasion, it was a little bit different. The young boy was very lucky that it happened on the beach and very close to PK's beachfront property. And starts to sound like an ad. There is a boardwalk that links the beach directly to PK, so it wasn't that far to go. That's great. Come on, the PKs, we have a boardwalk. So if you get attacked by a fucking crocodile, you don't have far to walk. This is my far north. Is it time? Should we play it? Yeah, we got to.
Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Bob.
But I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Oh, I love that we get to play that clip every now and again. Thanks, Bobby. A spokesperson from the department confirmed to the outlet that the teen's wounds were consistent with a crocodile attack. People have contacted the Queensland Ambulance Service, Cairns Hospital, PK's Jungle Village, and the Department of Environmental Tourism and Science and Innovation for comment. 4 crocodiles have been seen in the Cape Tribulation area so far this month, with one sighting on Wednesday being investigated. Our thoughts are with the young person who has been impacted, the Queensland Tourism Industry Council Chief Executive Natasha Wheeler told The Guardian. There you go. Okay, back to another story. We're going to go to a bear story, another bear story. An elk hunter has sadly died after 3 weeks after he was attacked by a grizzly. I don't think we covered this story. So let's talk about that now, the aftermath of the story. Joey Pendry, who managed to fight off the sow and call for help, has died from complications related to his injuries. A Canadian hunter who was mauled by a grizzly bear died on Saturday, 3 weeks after the attack near Fort Steele, British Columbia. 63-year-old Joe Pendry died of a suspected blood clot, according to the CBC. Quote, Dad suffered a complication and went into cardiac arrest. The nurses and doctors did everything they could, but unfortunately they were unable to revive him, wrote Facebook user Janessa Higgety in a post announcing Pendry's death. Pendry had been hunting elk in Canada's East Kootenay region on October 2nd when he crossed paths with a sow and her 2 cubs. He fought back, eventually managing to call 911 and his son for help. He was transported by helicopter to the hospital and later underwent several surgeries to repair his face and part of his scalp that was torn off. He was also treated for a severed finger and for broken bones. Pendry's family set up a GoFundMe account that raised nearly $20,000 during his hospital stay. It was very touch and go, his wife Janice Pendry told CBC News a few days before her husband's death. But he's a tough fighter. Because he appeared to be recovering from his injuries, his death came as somewhat of a surprise. He had moved from ICU to the trauma ward, and his wife said that he was walking and laughing in the hospital the night before he died. That's very, very sad. With heavy hearts and profound sadness, we shared the passing of our beloved husband, dad, grandpa, brother, and uncle, wrote a family spokesperson in an email. After fighting the ultimate fight with remarkable courage and strength, he has now found peace. During the bear attack, Pendry managed to fire off 1 shot. The BC Conservation Officer Service found a dead grizzly bear nearby a few days after the attack. DNA evidence confirmed that it was, in fact, the same bear. So he got it. He killed it. God damn. Joey was a man whose spirit reflected the rugged beauty of the outdoors he loved so deeply, wrote Pendry's niece, Rachel Wells, in an email. A skilled hunter and guide, he found joy and purpose in nature. Pendry was not the only elk hunter attacked by a grizzly this month. Celia Easton of Thermopolis, wow, Thermopolis, what a cool name, in Wyoming, narrowly escaped severe injury when a charging grizzly pulled her boot off her foot. Because it was raining, Easton had been wearing rubber knee-high boots instead of laced hiking boots. Here this big old sow grizzly with her baby about 20 yards away coming at me, Easton told the Cowboy State Daily. I was partly under a tree. She was trying to drag me out from under the tree, but then my boot popped off. My foot came free and the bear just swept ends and ran. Easton has a bruised big toe, and a fractured a punctured rain boot. That's not an injury. You can't call it that. The bear involved in the case wasn't injured or captured. If that was just the tiniest taste of power that was in those jaws, Easton said, you can only imagine what it would have done to me if she'd really clamped down on me. Hey, I don't feel good about the Canadian accent here, guys, but yeah, I'm gonna do it. Sorry. I have my ethics. Sometimes people are like, hey, why don't you do the Japanese voice? Why don't you do the Indian voice? But you do the Canadian voice, huh? I don't know. I don't have a good explanation, but I'm doing it. Okay, final story, and then we will wrap it up. A man, 81 years of age, has his scalp ripped off after a vicious dog attack by 7 dogs during walk. Good Lord. Here we go. Jamie Boyd, 81, is currently staving off infection and facing possible amputation after 7 dogs attacked him about a month ago, according to his family, who live in Bibb County, Alabama. Oh, we're down in Bama. The owners of the dogs are facing criminal charges and a lawsuit, according to local news stations. Boyd remains in critical condition a month after the attack, and it's really touch and go. I nearly did the Canadian. It's really touch and go. How do I do Alabama? It doesn't really matter. According to attorney Paul Patterson, Boyd was walking to his mailbox at the end of a long road on his property where he was attacked by 7 dogs. His wife witnessed the attack and tried to help, but her walker acted as a hindrance. Boyd's attorney gave an update on his well-being, saying he's facing amputation of his arm, his leg. In order to stop infection that is out of control, the family seeks prayers from everyone in the community. According to the lawsuit against the dog's owners, Boyd's scalp was ripped from his head, and he lost 50% of his muscle tissue. His lawyer, Patterson, said this wasn't a dog attack, but a brutal mauling. This is one of the most tragic dog mauling attacks I've ever handled over the years. The dog's owners, William and Lacey Mitchell, who are the Boyd's neighbors, have been indicted and are being charged under Emily's Law, a law in Alabama that addresses the owners of dogs that attack or cause serious injury, with one count of control of dangerous dogs. Patterson believes Emily's Law needs to be re-examined and possibly updated. I think the legislature really needs to take another look at Emily's Law to make sure it's a little more punitive on people who have reckless disregard for the safety of others who own these types of dogs. There you go. Well, hopefully this guy pulls through. Jamie Boyd, crazy attack. I mean, he's 81. Like, that's a big red flag there. Hopefully he pulls through. I mean, can you imagine being scalped? Oh, and I said there he was going to get scalped. He'd been scalped and was fighting off infection and possibly amputation. Like, what are they amputating? How do you amputate the top of someone's head? That's a lobotomy. Anyway, hope he pulls through. I will try to follow up that episode as best as I can. We're going to finish this episode off the way we always do, hey? With a little bit of fun. We got to end on a fun note, gang. This is a quiz called Animal Misconceptions. And the challenge here is to pick the correct animal for each animal misconception. So, here we go. This misconception is, this animal isn't attracted to a flame, it's disoriented by it. And I think that has to be the moth, right? The moth is the one that is attracted to the flame. So let's do that. Very good. The next one. I'm speaking fast because there's a timer. I don't know if I can turn the timer off. Can I turn the timer off? Hold on. I will restart the quiz because I don't want to be rushed. Timer. Let's do practice mode. That's great. Okay, cool. Oh, I can't. I have to sign up with an account. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so we're just going to get through as many as we can. Moth to a flame, correct. Pinocchio is much too big. The largest thing this animal can swallow is about the size of a pineapple. Well, would it be a whale? Because he was swallowed by a whale? Let's try the whale. Correct, there you go. These animals don't commit suicide, though overpopulation does sometimes result in accidental deaths. Could that possibly be lemmings? Yes. I want you to play along with me. Yell the answers out. Even if you're with someone else, yell out, scream lemmings to me. Rather than blending into their environment, these animals generally change color because of emotional and temperature changes. What do we think that is? I'm thinking chameleons. Is it chameleons? Wow, I didn't know that. Very good. Despite his name, no species of this animal has exactly 100 legs. Surely that's the snake. Just kidding. Centipede. This animal, not the rhino or lion, is the mammal that kills the most humans in Africa. I think we know this. Hippopotamus. It doesn't matter how many humps these animals have, they store fat in them, not water. Do you know? Camel, correct. Old West hunters never killed any of these animals, despite Bill's famous name. What they actually killed were bison. Any ideas? Buffalo. And I always thought buffalo and bison were interchangeable names, but I guess not, according to this quiz. Unlike what legend tells you, this animal is one of the most susceptible insects to radiation. Any Fallout fans here can tell me what this would be? The radroach, aka the cockroach. There you go. Whether it be from a clarinet, a flute, or an oboe, these animals don't really hear music, but rather frequency ranges and vibrations. I actually don't know what this might be. Maybe it's fruit flies. That's one of the options there is fruit flies. You know how like they say you play music and the flies will fly around in circles? Let's try fruit fly. Oh, incorrect. Okay, got it wrong. Violin strings have been long made from sheep intestines, but they've never been made from the guts of these animals. I don't know this either. The options are bulls, cats, dogs, earthworms, flamingos, fruit fly, horse, ostrich, reindeer, snakes, or turkeys. A horse, I guess? No, wrong. Okay, got that one wrong too. Smart enough not to suffocate itself, this animal does not actually hide its head in the sand. That's got to be ostrich. This one's for the birds. The Canary Islands are actually named after these animals. Canary's not there. Is it named after turkeys? I don't know. No, I have no idea. Catherine the Great died of a stroke in bed alone in her late 60s. She was not underneath one of these animals. That's the horse. There's a rumor that she was fucking a horse. Very rude. The animal first in space was not a monkey, but rather one of these frequent test animals. I think it's a dog. Or is it a mouse? Mouse isn't there. Dog. Nope. Incorrect. Damn. Maybe earthworm? Cutting this animal in half does not give you two animals rather than just a cut. Okay, so it's earthworm. There you go. They do not eat shrimp. These animals actually get their color from algae in their diet. That one is flamingos. Know that one. These animals are attracted to the movement of a cape. Its red color makes no difference to them since they're colorblind. That's a bull. Despite their name, these fowl come from North America, but were sold in... it's turkey. Very good. Turkeys. They also live in Australia. Bush turkey. Glowing nose or not, these animals had to be female since the only female keeps its antlers in the winter, so that's got to be reindeer. Oh, okay, so what were the ones I got wrong? Interesting. So the snake, cats, fruit fly, dogs. Anyway. All right, gang, let's call it there. I think that'll be a good way to end our episode. Thank you so much for joining me and learning a little bit about Halloween. And thanks for spending some time with me on my birthday. I was joking at the beginning. There's actually not a lot I would rather be doing right now than hanging out and recording an episode of the show. I love doing this, and it gets me really, really excited when people listen to the show like you guys did last week. So it is my birthday, and so I'm going to ask a request. If you haven't already, can you please give this show a rating, preferably a 5-star rating, wherever you listen to it. Maybe give the episode a comment on the Instagram post, follow the Instagram. As much engagement as you can give me, I would very, very, very much appreciate, because it does help me out. Of course, I'm not going to push for this one. We do have a Patreon, patreon.com/maneaters. Currently doing a watch through of Buffalo Rider, the film. Having a lot of fun there. And of course, doing the Zua, I can't remember what it's called. Metazua. Doing the Metal Zua every now and again as well. So please head over to the Patreon. If you can support the show, would really love to see you there. Otherwise, like, comment, do all those good things, all the social media bullshit. And that's going to be it. I'm going to see you next time with a brand new episode. I hope you've been well. Hope you're hanging in there. Tricky times lately, but I think we're all going to get through it as long as we stay together and love each other. And remember, gang, as always, stay safe out there, because as we've learned, it's a jungle out there. Oh, I love yous. Hooroo!